What you just saw me do was summoning the first boss of this Minecraft RPG mod pack. For the wild ride ahead, I'll be taking on bosses and exploring crazy dungeons, so you don't want to miss a second of this. So get ready for what's probably my best video yet, and if you liked it, why don't you drop a like and a sub? It will motivate me and make my day. So yeah, just watch the rest of the video. Now the first thing I had to do after spawning in was to choose a class, and I have to admit all the classes in this mod pack look insane, and I think I was confused between whether to take Titan or the Forgotten Knight class, but at the end of the day I decided to go with the Forgotten Knight. So I started doing some basic Minecraft stuff and then proceeded to kill the mobs with my sword I was equipped with in my class. And then look at this, I already found my first structure and I decided to go towards it and find out what it's about. It somewhat looked like a cottage house, a big cottage house to be more specific, and I found the entrance. So I entered it and it looks pretty decent, and the loot tables were honestly fine for starters, and yeah, I just started looting everything. The barrels were just a scam, man. There's nothing inside the barrels. And I found a ladder, climbed up the ladder, and there seemed to be a bunch of storage units stored down here. And then again, it was pretty much the same loot tables, and I got everything I needed for starting my journey. Oh yes, I did find an orange in one of the chests, and thinking about it now, I do not think I consumed that orange throughout the journey. I'm not sure, but we'll see once we watch the video more. So yeah, I left that structure and then decided to cook up all the food I collected from his chest. So I made a smoker and went off to gather more resources like wood, and I guess I added more meat to cook. So yeah, that's what I did. I ended up finding a ruined portal nearby, and whew, that clutch, I low-key forgot about that clutch. Seeing it right now makes me kind of proud, because I usually don't clutch unexpectedly. And the loot in the ruined portal itself was pretty nice. I got a golden apple, but other than that, I just collected the gold because I know later on in this journey it will be totally essential, and you'll honestly see that. So that's what I did. Then I ventured off to the nearby biome and ended up finding a village, which is pretty good, I can't lie. A village this early into the game, it's nice. So since it was nighttime, pretty much the first thing I did was go to sleep. And yeah, I found a house with a bed. And okay, I do not know what this guy's trying to do, but let's just ignore that. Then I decided to find some more essential items such as gold and iron as well. And then while I was doing all of this, I randomly thought of searching up armor to see what all kinds of armor you can craft in this game. And let me tell you this, there's a lot of cool looking armor that's part of this mod pack. And I don't know if you can craft all of this, but just look at this, there's dragon armor. I don't know if you can craft this as I clearly mentioned, but spoiler alert, I don't end up crafting dragon armor, but I do craft some cool looking armor in the later stages of the game. So yeah, watch the video to find out. Now, once I was outside the cave, I decided to explore the area a bit more, and look at this, I ended up finding another structure. So I decided to go towards the structure to find out what it actually was, and it looked like some sort of fortress, I guess. So just keep in mind that this is actually the first dungeon that I'm supposed to explore in order to fight the first boss of this game. So yeah, I tried to get in, but I felt like I was kind of undergeared. So I decided to grab some blocks, and that is exactly what I did. I also spotted a lava source nearby, so decided to grab that as well, because lava will be very essential to fight off the creatures inside the dungeon, let's just say. And yeah, as you guys can see, I then proceeded to enter the dungeon. Now the whole point of exploring this dungeon is not actually to fight the boss, because the boss is separate and it's not over here. But the whole point is to gear up and prepare yourself in order to fight the boss, because this mod pack consists of 4 different factions and each faction is represented by a boss. So just keep in mind this is the first one. Now, the cool looking mob you see right here is actually the most dangerous one in this dungeon, and as soon as I saw him, I knew I had to get out. And holy crap, I actually get sandwiched by 2 of them. And yeah, I clearly got annihilated in that dungeon. Not even a few seconds inside and I already almost died. I went back into the dungeon and decided to block off all the areas, and what I did next is honestly quite smart. I decided to lava the feet of all these creatures and deal damage to them at the same time, so it made them very easy to kill. Plus I wasn't able to get the loot. And just note that this is going to be a theme or a strat, I guess you can say, that I'm going to be using throughout this video in all the dungeons I'm going to be exploring. I thought I was cooking all the creatures in there, but turns out it's all pointless without breaking the spawners. But in order to do that, I need to go inside, and I cannot do that with my current armor as I'll just get shredded into pieces. So I then decided to go out and then get more stacked. While I was outside, I noticed a few skeletons spawning in, meaning there was a spawner somewhere over there. And while I was here, I decided to just break the spawner, and that's what I went inside for. During this frame, you can see that the monster spawner is right in front of me, but for some reason I did not notice that at that point, and what caught my eyes was the chest, and I ended up getting an enchanted golden apple from it, which was kinda cool. But after that I tried to search for the monster spawner that was right in front of me, but yeah, I still did not notice it. I decided to take one last chance at attempting to break the deserter spawner, but clearly that did not go well and I almost died. So yeah, this time I went out for real, like no more going back. And once I was outside, there was still a lot of mobs chasing me, so I decided to kill them. I then noted down the codes of the dungeon and decided to go to the village in order to get more stacked. I started working on an area to keep all the villagers I'm going to be trading with, basically making a miniature version of a villager trading hall. Once that was done, I started to work on getting the right villager traits. I wanted protection on my armor pieces so I can tank some of the damage dealt by the creatures in the dungeon, and I did end up getting a Prot 4 book, but I did not have enough M's to lock in the trade, so I decided to make a tripwire hook farm in order to trade with the Fletcher and get all the M's to trade. In order to make a tripwire hook farm, I required iron and redstone, but I currently did not have enough, so I decided to make a quick trip into the caves to get them. On the way back, I found this new ore called silver, so I decided to grab that as well. Once I was out, I started working on the items needed to make the tripwire hook farm, and unfortunately for me, by this time the Prot 4 villager reset had already happened. But regardless of that, I still needed M's to trade, so I decided to just go with the tripwire hook farm. Once I was done with that, I worked on getting a Fletcher villager. In order to reach the point where the Fletcher sells me emeralds for tripwire hooks, I needed to max him out, so I went on a rampage collecting sticks to trade with him. I also got a second Fletcher, cause why not? It just means more M's. After that, I slowly started progressing the Fletcher villagers. I then wanted a protection book from the librarian, and I did end up getting a Prot 3 book, but notice how the lectern isn't in the right spot? I did not like this. Plus, I wanted to push myself for Prot 4, and let me tell you, that was the biggest mistake of my life, because it took nearly the next hour to get what I wanted. Resetting the trays is just pure torture, man, because it's like I was getting everything but what I wanted. I got mending 4 or 5 times, but that's just not what I needed. And finally, after breaking and placing a lectern for countless number of times, I ended up getting a Prot 3 book, and this time I did not let greed take over me. I decided to settle for that Prot 3 book. Even though I had all the emeralds to trade for Prot 3, I still needed a book to execute the trade, so I made a quick stop at the dungeon to grab a few books. I bought 4 Prot 3 books and I was just going through the armor types you can make, and turns out you can make silver armor, and it seemed to be much stronger than what I was wearing right now, so I decided to go for that. In order to make silver armor, you needed silver and gold, so I went back into the caves for the same purpose. I also found this new ore which apparently you cannot mine with an iron pickaxe, but that basically indicates it's a ore worth having. So I decided to leave it for now, but definitely come back later for it. I was also running low on food, so I got a farmer as well. Once I had everything to craft silver armor, I crafted an entire set. And then I enchanted the entire set with Prot 3. While I went to collect a few more resources, I encountered this weird looking zombie. I also discovered that you can actually make different types of shields, so I decided to make a silver shield to go along with my silver armor. One of the traits of the Fletcher villager was a power 2 bow, so I decided to go for it and bought a few arrows as well. And now finally after hours of grinding for material, I felt like I was stacked enough to take on the dungeon. So I equipped the silver armor on and oh man, I just look crazy with the silver armor. I still can't get over how good the armor looks in this mod pack. And yeah, I then ventured off to find the dungeon. Oh yes, and also I had installed a map mod, so finding the dungeon wasn't that hard. This time, entering the dungeon felt different because I was ready to take on whatever it had in store for me. The placement of the two chests right there in that room seemed quite skeptical to me because I had a feeling there was some kind of trap going on, which is why I quickly opened it and ran away. But seems like there was nothing to be afraid of. And here's my first encounter with a deserter after a while, but this time I wasn't afraid because I was prepared. And just see how much I'm tanking his hits. The lava plus bow combo was just shredding through the health of these deserters, and all those hours of grinding felt worth it at this moment. Now, don't get me wrong, they were still kinda scary when they come at me as a group, so I did have to back off a lot of times. I then entered the same area where I left the dungeon initially, and I still struggled to find the monster spawner that was right in front of me until finally I realized that it was inside the fountain and broke it. I then found this totally not suspicious looking chest and decided to click on it. And what happens when I click on it? Ah, yes, it's a chest mimic. Totally not expected. But yeah, it was kind of cool seeing this. Killing that chest mimic gave me a lot of OP loot, so I'll take it. I got this really long and cool looking sword known as the True Claymore, so I equipped that and found myself doing some parkour shortly after. At this point, I felt like I've conquered the dungeon truly, and there was nothing left to be explored, so I decided to just leave. But I couldn't get all excited right now because this just means I'm going to be facing the first boss. I then decided to find the boss arena for the first boss of this mod pack, but on the way I found a graveyard, so I decided to check that out. As soon as I opened the first chest, I got a notch apple, so I knew I had to explore all the different chests over there. On opening this chest, I found a few useful items such as the Ring of Eternal Resting and the Estus Flasks. The Ring of Eternal Resting basically gives me strength while fighting undead mobs, and at that point of the game I did not know what the Estus Flask did, but later on I discovered that it's one of the most useful items to have. I then proceeded to walk towards the boss arena known as the Wasteland. Now, the boss arena itself had a very similar theme to the dungeon we saw earlier, and the thing you see in the middle is what summons the boss. Once I found out where the wasteland was, I decided to go back because I wanted to enchant my sword and basically get more prepared in general. So I decided to extend the villager trading hall, and after a reasonably painful amount of time spent on getting a librarian and resetting the trades, guess what? I did not get a sharpness book. Instead, I got prot 4, the one thing I was looking for earlier. Like, this has to be a 10 out of 10 rage bait. Honestly, I just couldn't care. I already settled for prot 3, so I just decided to move on and try to find a sharpness book. Shortly after that, I actually did end up getting a sharpness 4 book, so hey, at least the game's treating me nice now. So I immediately locked in the trade and put it on my claymore, and I decided to buy one more as well to put it on my great axe. So that's what I did, and after that I sorted my inventory, and I guess I was ready to take on the boss now. So the first boss is actually called Karmath, and he's pretty much an enhanced version of the creatures you saw in the dungeon. Uh, I expected the fight to be much longer and exciting, but I guess I was just too powerful for him. Anyway, I'll take the win. Defeating Karmath gave me a few items such as the essence of Karmath and a music disc, which was alright, but the two most important items I received were the champion belt, which basically increases my maximum health, armor, and knockback resistance, and I also got this insanely cool looking sword known as the Oath, which I guess was the sword Karmath was holding. That's 1 out of 4 factions conquered. And before moving to the next faction, I decided to make an actual base instead of living in a dirt house meant for villagers. I wanted to make a base that goes along with the environment I'm in, so I decided to make an igloo since I'm in a snowy biome. Now for the moment you guys have all been waiting for. I finally completed my base and here's what it looks like. I kinda decorated the entrance, so that's why it's like that. Once you enter, there's a simple interior. There's the forgotten knight armor along with the chest with all the things in the mod. That's where my bed is and the crafting table and things like that. Here's a storage unit and I did kinda sort it out. So all the essential items will be here. And apart from that, I made a dungeon type area for my enchantment table. It's a level 30 enchantment table by the way, and a chest along with all the things related to that. So yeah, that's pretty much how my base is. And here's a 360-degree view of the area surrounding the base, I guess. And yeah, you can ignore the villager. I do not know what he's doing. So yeah, that's pretty much how my base is. I hope you guys liked it. The next dungeon and boss is in a desert biome. So in order to get to the desert biome, I decided to make a nature's compass so I can track it down easily. So I crafted the nature's compass and tracked down the nearest desert biome, and it's 3000 blocks away from me. So it was gonna be a long journey because finding the desert biome, that's just one half of the trouble. Finding the dungeon and the boss arena comes next. I found a nearby village and decided to grab the food in there real quick. I found another one of those graveyards again, but let's just say the experience this time was quite different. I encountered a bunch of creatures like this guy that was not there last time. Once I was done looting that place, I decided to leave and continue my journey. I found another structure that I had explored before yet again. I found one of those huge cottage houses and decided to just check it out, but I left soon enough after realizing there was nothing new in that. Oh, I completely forgot to tell you guys. I did add a waystone mod before traveling, so I was really hoping to find one on the way, and I did find one in a village. After traveling for a while, I found this new structure that I've never seen before, so I decided to check it out. I entered the house and immediately found a lectern with a book and quill on it, and the book and quill was titled Blacksmiths, and it read out, I dedicated my entire life to forging a spell that would immortalize my creations, but in my obsession with work, I lost her, the only woman I ever loved. Now, as I leave this enchantment for another to find and use it with wisdom, I can't help but be consumed by grief. I lost her in this damned pursuit of perfection, and that weight is too much for me, not after what it has cost me. I took the enchanted book and it was actually mending. So, W blacksmith, I guess. Other than that, there was nothing much in there, so I left that place and continued traveling. On the way, I also found this tower, which wasn't much, but there was some decent loot in there, I guess. And finally, after traveling a lot, I ended up finding the desert biome. But as I had mentioned before, finding the desert biome is just one half of the headache done. Now I need to find the dungeon, which basically looks like a long pyramid. And after traveling like 5000 blocks in total, I actually ended up finding the dungeon. And oh man, was I excited to conquer this. I then found the entrance of the dungeon and entered it. This dungeon was a bit more advanced than the previous because there was a variety of creatures down here, and this is one of them. I understood that there was some kind of spawner over there, so I decided to go through the walls in order to break the spawner. As usual, I started using the lava strat. I ended up consuming something known as the Divine Stew over here, and it gave me a bunch of buffs which did help me out a lot. I found a bunch of different looking creatures over here, so I did want to play it a bit defensive. I made a bunch of golden apples as a precautionary measure so that I don't actually die. I entered this room and immediately found scorpions crawling around to kill me. Hell no. Once I entered this room, I found this sandstone golem thingy. I decided to leave the husks alone cause there's literally no point in trying to kill them. But apart from that, I guess I did truly conquer this dungeon. After that, I started searching for the boss arena, but I somehow ended up finding a second dungeon before finding the boss arena. After a while of traveling, I ended up finding a village, which was cool, but what I needed was the boss arena. And guess what was next to the village? The boss arena I was looking for. So that's kind of cool, and conveniently it was placed right next to a village, so getting resources will be easy. I approached the boss arena, which was some kind of temple, I guess, and then I set a waystone. I'm not sure why I did this, but whatever. It's at this point that I decided to see what an Estus flask actually did, and I'm so glad I decided to make that decision, because it gives me regeneration. I wasted one, but at least I know what it does now. I guess I was ready to fight the boss now, but before that I just wanted to sleep the night away and set my respawn point here. So this next boss is actually called Sunlia, and before summoning her, I was like, oh, my fight against Karma, the previous boss, went mad easy. So this will probably end up being the same. Yeah, that's just not what happened, and you'll see. Maybe I did underestimate the bosses in this mod pack. I tried going back into the temple, but without any armor it was just pointless. Like, the difference between the first boss and the second boss is crazy. I decided to break that bed and set my respawn point next to a location that's quite far from the boss so that I can actually get my stuff and have a chance at defeating it. Unfortunately for me, the boss saw me and started chasing me, but somehow I lost it and ended up getting all my stuff back. I knew if I fought Sunlia in close combat, I would be killed within seconds. So I used my bow and tried to maintain a distance between us. I got lucky here, cause she just fell inside a hole, giving me a high ground advantage to constantly bow her. Now, seeing me bow her to death, you guys are probably like, ah yes, he secured the win. There's nothing the boss can do now and there's no way she's getting out of there. And I decided to do something so foolish, I still don't understand how and why I wanted to do that. So, I basically wanted to get some blood into my own hands and use the claymore to finish her off instead of the bow. And just see what happens next. Yeah, I don't know how I expected that to end. You know, seeing this footage while editing makes me realize how stupid I am. The struggle to kill Sunlia after that is something that I would not like to talk about, but here's a short glimpse. She was just right next to all my stuff, and if I go down there, she slimes me out within 2 seconds. And then for some reason, she decides to go deeper into the cave, which is actually good for me, because now I can actually pick up my stuff. I ran out of arrows right when she was about to die, which left me with no other option but to kill her using my weapons. So I guess I did get my hands dirty. Finally, I defeated Sunlia, and now that makes it 2 out of 4 factions conquered. Defeating Sunlia dropped a lot of OP loot, but the most important of them were this item called the Hands of Sunlia and the Sunrise, which was a really OP sword. I then went back to my base, set the respawn point, and set up a waystone next to it. The fight against Sunlia completely destroyed my silver armor set, so I decided to get an upgrade. And remember the ore I couldn't mine earlier with a iron pickaxe? Turns out it's actually titanium, and you can make titanium armor. So that's what I was gonna do now. So while the raw titanium was smelting, I decided to make a nether portal, cause the next 2 bosses and dungeons is in the nether, not the overworld. I wanted to check out what my nether spawn looked like, and it was honestly fine. Once it was done, I crafted an entire set of titanium armor along with a titanium shield. I enchanted the entire titanium armor set with Prot 3 after that. I also enchanted the Sunrise sword with sharpness and combined 2 power 2 bows to make a power 3 bow. I was now ready to take on the dungeon and the next boss in the nether. Using the map, I realized that the next dungeon is right next to my portal. This is what the dungeon looks like, and it's actually a cathedral. Something convenient about the nether bosses is that they are part of the dungeon itself and they don't have a boss bar, but they're still really OP. I entered the cathedral and the first thing I saw was a chest surrounded by gold blocks, so at least we're off to a good start. Underneath me was a room with a monster spawner spawning creatures, and I can't really explain what those creatures were cause I don't know myself. These creatures were actually immune to arrows, so I guess I'll have to get my hands dirty for this one. Opening this chest gave me a vampire necklace, which was basically a lifesteal necklace. The other tower of the cathedral had a lot of gold blocks as well, so I grabbed everything cause I will need it later to make golden apples. After that, I went back down to the lobby of the cathedral and spotted the main boss of this dungeon, the High Priest. But before that, I had to kill his minions and thankfully they took lava damage. This is the High Priest, the main boss of this dungeon, and thankfully he took arrow damage, so I was hoping to bow him to death, but he had a super cool ability that made things problematic for me. The High Priest was able to teleport around like an Enderman, which meant fighting him will not be easy and had the potential to be worse than Sunlier. However, his biggest strength ended up becoming his biggest weakness because he just teleported around me and fell inside lava. A little bit of luck along with my own efforts helped me defeat the High Priest, so that's now 3 out of 4 factions conquered. I was still not done looting the cathedral, so I quickly did that. Once I declared there was nothing left to be seen in the cathedral, I decided to go back home. Once I was back, I decided to turn a major amount of my gold into golden apples. After that, I went back into the nether to find the fourth and final dungeon. I ended up finding a bastion before the dungeon, and I wasn't really interested in exploring the bastion, but I decided to grab the loot over there real quick. After that, I spent some time trying to look for the final dungeon, and with the help of the map, I was able to find it relatively fast. But I did not want to go in yet, so I marked the coords and went back home. My plan was to place a waystone next to the dungeon, so that way in case I die, I can just teleport there as soon as I respawn. So I went on a journey to find a waystone, and after traveling like another 5000 blocks in the opposite direction, I finally found a waystone. On the way back home, I found this miniature cave with a huge dude inside. Once I reached my base, I made more golden apples and immediately went to the dungeon. Once I found the dungeon, I made a platform and placed the waystone so I can teleport back and forth just in case I died. This dungeon was like an enhanced version of a bastion, so there were a lot of piglin brutes in addition to the creatures of the dungeon itself. Once I broke that block, I was finally able to see the creatures that roamed this dungeon. Fortunately for me, they took arrow damage, so they weren't much of a trouble. I tried to get this gold block, expecting it to fall straight down into the cobblestone, but it went sideways and fell in the lava, so that was kind of funny. In order to break the spawner at the center, I needed more blocks, that's why I started digging in and collecting blocks. And now you'll see me encounter the boss of this dungeon, which is the biggest guy here. The big guy who was shredding my health is the boss of this dungeon. I don't know what his name is, but he sure is powerful. I panicked and threw an ender pearl to teleport away, and that might have low-key saved my life. These guys were immune to lava, so I guess no more lava damage. Opening this chest gave me a ring known as the Molten Ring, which burns my enemies. but for some reason I still wanted to use my current ring. I'm not sure if that was the right call, but whatever. I saw the boss again, but this time I realized our positioning is quite good and can be used to my advantage if played correctly. So I placed a block preventing him from reaching me. Doing this was really the right call, cause now he cannot attack me, but I can damage him. I have to say, this boss is so far the one with the most health, and it took forever to kill him. Luckily for me, he wasn't attacking, but I was able to deal damage to him, so it was pretty much a guaranteed win for me. And there we go. The death of this boss marked 4 out of 4 bosses killed, but since I wasn't done with this dungeon, I can't declare it to be conquered yet. I decided to explore the tower at the center because it looked kinda intimidating. I wanted to climb up to the highest point of the tower, but guess what? I encountered the boss again. This time I was much more vulnerable, and as you guys can see, I had to eat a notch apple to play it safe. Finally, after a long struggle, I was able to kill the boss again. So now that's 4 out of 4 bosses and dungeons conquered, and now I can truly say I have conquered this mod pack. Once everything was done, I decided to go back home, and once I teleported back home, I felt like there was only one more thing left to do. Remember the 2 music discs I got when I defeated Kamath and Sunlia? Well, I made a jukebox to see what it sounds like. And that was the journey of how I conquered the Dungeons and Combat mod. I tried my best to make this video entertaining. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. And if you did not like this video, please let me know how I can improve my future videos.